What do you say, Håkan? What would you like the politicians to do to make your work easier?
Yeah, I think both at the national level, like the Trafikverket, what we need is clear signals from the politicians to plan for not, because I think that, as I said very clear, that it's not only about technical measures. It's also about planning our society so that it is less dependent on passenger car traveling, more public transport, more cycling and walking and so on. And then, of course, we need the right signals so that we can offer a plan for the politicians that actually give this decrease of the, or at least is planned for a decrease in passenger car transport. But also, this signal is also needed for all the municipalities and for the regional planning, so that they dare to plan for this. Because what I think now is that many municipalities in Sweden looking what the national politician says, and they do not dare to plan for this kind of society. And I think that is also in other areas than transport.
Short comment, Kjell.
Yeah, if we look into, I showed the graph that showed how much fossil fuel goes into getting food on the table. And that is the number one thing that we had to look into, because we need food in the future. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, if you grow something environmentally correctly on the farm, I mean, it's very, very little dependent, because when you put all the other things on top of that, you eat a lot of oil anyway, you know. So look into where can we make shortcuts when it comes to getting the food to the table without taking so much fossil fuel in the future. And for instance, there is a company in Sweden, what is called Lenas Matkass. It's that you can order food for 1 week with the recipes and everything, and they just go out, deliver it, you know. And especially in the urban area where all people, say 10 families, take their car to go and make the shopping of the food. Now one car is instead delivering the food to all the people, you know. And these kind of things will save an enormous amount of fossil fuel for the food.
You have some interesting ideas in the report on how Bristol could be little bit less dependent on food, you know, transported from other side of the world, or where it comes from today. Could you give you some of these examples?
Yeah, I mean, Bristol is a city. It's always going to draw food from the outside. It won't, but there is an extent to which you can encourage food production in the city, and I think like it's not. Some of that is it's never going to address, you know, the real food need, but you can, if you particularly get people sort of thinking about that and raising food, it can change their attitude and their sort of relationship with it in a way that puts a greater value on it. And then we were talking about how you might localize the food system, and one of the best ways is to work with the public sector. So if you can, for example, you know, you're feeding schools and hospitals and so on, if you can increase the amount of food there that is produced more locally and doesn't have to travel as far, then that's can make quite a large impact on the food requirement of the city. So that's something we're kind of looking at.
Yes, I certainly agree with that. I think that the public sector has to move ahead in this issue to set the pace for the rest of society to change. And public procurement, what we buy from the public sector, is one key issue. But I think that also the infrastructure that we are building for the welfare of people has to be more robust to the challenge of climate change. And just one example is that here in Stockholm, we have one ambulance that is not dependent 100% on fossil fuels. One ambulance for the whole of Stockholm, and not one fire truck in the whole region that can run without fossil fuels. And to me, that's a very obvious example of how we're not prepared for a society that might shift very fastly into a situation where we don't have the energy to run these vehicles on, and where we don't have a fire system that's working and a healthcare system that's working anymore. Mm-hmm. So that's very, very troublesome.
I will let the public in here with some questions, and I will say that you don't necessarily have to put a question in English if you don't want to. You can put it in Swedish, and I'll translate it. So the first question is here.
Thank you for all your information.
You get a microphone here.
Thank you for all your information. I learned a lot. My question is, you are talking about peak oil. What is the peak oil's relation to atomic energy? And we always heard that this generation atomic energy is very safe. We have heard it before in Japan, and we are going to hear in the future. What do you trust?
Who wants to answer that? Well, as being trained as a nuclear physicist, also I might be on my shoulders. We talk peak oil is about transportation. You know, it's about most of the oil is used for transportation. And when we talk about nuclear power, it's about electricity production. So electricity and nuclear power, that has to do with coal. So one can say peak coal and peak and electricity and nuclear power is more related to each other. Yes, we should not have the discussion about nuclear power, but again, the energy situation is very bad. Take coal, for instance, that is used for electricity production. We have just in China that 1,000 people per year is killed in accidents in coal mines to get electricity out from the coal. And that is, of course, never discussed when it comes to should we close down all the coal power plants because so many people are killed when mining the coal. So again, we have discussions, but it's another discussion.
Mm-hmm. What do you say, Per?
Well, I think it was Einstein that said that you can't solve the problems of today with the thinking that caused the problems. And in my view, nuclear power is kind of the same problem that the fossil fuel dependence is. It's not dependent on a renewable source of energy. And I think that is also a great risk that trying to solve the acute problems of today with climate and with peak oil problems, that we create another problem for coming generations to solve in the future. And I think that we should do everything we can to avoid such a situation and try to focus on the solutions that are truly sustainable, which is, of course, renewable energy and efficiency.
Mm-hmm. We'll take two questions from the audience here at a time. And the first is from Jackie here in white shirt. Let's see if we can get a microphone.
Kjell Aleklet, you say that the price of oil cannot be higher than $200 per barrel because the economy won't function. I would imagine that the price of oil will be what it will be. I'm not very optimistic about the politicians regulating our use of oil. As you mentioned, the countries exporting oil are less democratic and more nationalistic and totalitarian. So can you really say that, considering what's required for food production and for other needs, that the price will be limited to the 200? And also, is, according to your figures, oil really a climate problem, as politicians probably won't reduce the use?
Please pass the microphone to the lady here in the blue shirt. Yes, you. And we have two at a time.
Sorry. I had a question about nuclear power and electricity, because you said you couldn't discuss that if you compare it to peak oil. But if you are going to use electric bikes and electric cars and so on, will the nuclear power not be something that you will use more then, or?
Okay, it looks like two questions for you, Kjell, but take them briefly.
Yeah. Okay, we can discuss the electricity. I mean, we can make electricity in many ways, you know. But let's concentrate on oil at this time. The price of oil, Yes, we have seen 2 times in the 80s and now in 2008 that when the price of oil passed, so the cost for the total oil was 7% of the global GDP, the global economy crashed, and that was just around $140 per barrel. So I was at a conference 2008, and the CEO of Airbus, we discussed prices and so on, and said, well, if price of oil will be over $200 or around there don't be an airline industry, period, he said. And without an airline industry, then you don't have globalization, and then the global economy will crash again. So we have the crash level when it comes to oil. At least 30, 40 years ahead we see now. We cannot see the society function with high prices.
And the other question?
Yeah, and what do you mean the
Electricity.
electricity?
Is oil a climate problem?
Well, I mean, both Christian Assar and I are saying that if it's just a question about oil and climate, it's not a problem. And the electricity, yes. For instance, electricity, something I believe very much in, is concentrating solar power that will build plants, for instance, in Africa. In Spain is one built, and we build more in the north coast of Africa and so on. Yes, the question is the base load of production, and we will see a lot of different ways to produce electricity. For Sweden, as it is now, if we had not had the nuclear power plants, the other choice had just been, as in Denmark, coal. We had the same amount of coal to produce electricity. So it's again, future. To reduce the use of it is important, and so on. It's not so much compared to oil when it comes to the use of it, but we can discuss it.
Okay. Simone first, and then Håkan.
So just to add, I mean, to what you were saying about the $200 oil, part of that is these countries rely on selling it as well. So there is a bit of a balance. It's in their interest to have a barrel of oil that people can still buy. So there's a bit of a balance there. And with regard to the climate change, I guess my concern would be, where is the tipping point? There's the IPCC is talking about the 2 degrees, but there's already issues going on. So some of this might be where you choose to put your risk factor. My risk factor's lower than that.
I don't say that we don't have a risk, but I say the what has been discussed has been discussed in the wrong way, and it should have been discussed in another way. Mm-hmm. Because if we really had understood the fact that we are running out of energy for the society, then the politicians had been way much longer in the planning when they are now. Because now they don't need to make decisions because this is so far away, so it's beyond my term of election,
Håkan.
I just comment about this, about electricity to the transport sector. It becomes much more efficient when you use electricity for cars and of course also for bicycles. So if you calculate what needs there are for electricity, it's about 10% of the electricity production today can supply the transport, the road transport sector.